The world is saved. The living room's dark, save for light being cast from the big TV screen and the imminent sunrise that's teasing the one starry sky with whispers of morning.
Hey, George.
Hey, Lions, how goes it?
Life was pretty good, and then you picked Golden Axe for the game this week.
Because I don't like you and I don't like your face.
Yeah, no, it's been all downhill since then.
Yeah, no, I too questioned like the unity of the universe. Like there is no good divinity that would put something like this on the planet, you know, like I which means I took wisdom damage, you know?
Yeah. And so I have to ask, so we were trying to decide what game to play for this episode, and we have like our list, and you were like, oh, what about Golden Axe? Like, right, it's a different genre. You know, it's from a much earlier age. It's actually 89. And it was an arcade game before that. And
right
at that time in history, arcade cabinets were like way more powerful than any home console. So they always took a massive degradation when they went from the arcade cabinet into the home console. But do you have like super fond memories of this game? Was this like my buddies and I used to ride our penny farthings down to the soda shop and then play Golden Axe?
Oh yeah, right after we played jacks down by the swimming hole.
Yeah, and marbles.
Yes. Actually, yes. No, a friend of mine, like my elementary school friend, we would play this game for quite some time at a shot, which blows my mind. I think it's like all of the things that I do that I personally find questionable, I think are root caused by having played this as a child. Like it damaged me when I was young. And now every time when I'm like, I don't know, man, I grew up with loving parents and a good home life. I don't know why I'm like this. It's probably this. This is probably why.
So this, I mean, I think we're kind of burying the lead a little bit on how we felt about it, but here I did get one particular silver lining out of this. So I just spent a week at my company's home office. We have like a thing that we do every year, and basically everybody in the company gets together, and it's a lot of fun. And a lot of people like to do tabletop gaming, so everybody gets together for a game night. And I said, oh, I can bring some video games if you guys want to play video games as well as tabletop games, because I knew the room we were going to be in had a television. And they were like, oh, that's cool. You should totally do that. And then I was playing Battletoads, actually. And I was getting ready to take a break and go play Joking Hazard. And somebody came into the room and was like, oh, do you have Golden Axe? And I was like, funny you should ask. so I hooked up Golden Axe for this guy and for another guy that was like, oh my God, Golden Axe. And I was like, wow, two people who are like super jazzed to play this. I am now going to forego playing Joking Hazard to like observe them like animals in the wild. And their experience was unlike my experience in all ways.
Really?
Oh yes, like there are whole things about this game that I was not able to derive from playing it, and that they clearly, like the way things in like a Sonic or a Mario or a Tetris might hold over for a lot of people our age. Like, man, they remembered every little trick and every little nook and cranny, and I was like, oh, so you really do need nostalgia goggles for this game to be fun, because I remember playing this as a kid, but it wasn't like super high on my favorites list. And these people think this is like the best game ever made. They're not embedding their controllers in the drywall at all. So clearly they're wrong.
Yeah, no, I mean, like I said, I played this not a tremendous amount, but we did play it a fair amount when I was younger. And like, I just remember, and we'll talk about it later, but just so much mysticism behind it. Like, I just remember thinking like when I was playing, like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. Like the magic system and the co-op gameplay is so fantastic. I didn't have any of those words, but like
it's like fun and also fun.
Yeah, it's fun. I like it. And I like things that are fun. And this is fun, like it just, but I just remember thinking like, oh man, and that's kind of why I wanted to, to play it because I was like, I remember this very emotionally and like not. I just remember it being like very interesting and fun, and I wanted to see like how well that held up, and we will get there.
Yeah. So let's start with the visuals. So how does it look?
How does it look? Well, I've thought about this. So I really think that you need to break this question up into two things. Like the way like the actual like visuals are as far as like, like the graphics and the colors and all that sort of stuff. And then the visuals as how they represent false 3-dimension, right? Because I think that, and I think like if I remember correctly, there's like, this is Golden Axe, the Golden Axe. And then there's like Golden Axe 2, Revenge of Death Adder, and like.
Yeah, and there's a third one, which is Revenge of Death Adder Jr. or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, there is a third one.
Revenge of Death Adder's second cousin twice removed. But like, so I think that this one we could go back and rename it Golden Axe: Am I in the same plane as my enemy? And because I found myself asking that question every second of the game. So as far as that, I would like to break that discussion up into two different things, like the visuals.
So the way they are to look at and enjoy, like you might enjoy a fine piece of art, versus their ability to convey information to you.
Yes. Exactly, because like in most games, it's just kind of like, oh, well, if the colors are really drabbed, and sometimes it's difficult to like it's difficult to say like, oh, well, I'm here and the bad guys are there, or what have you. But like in this one, it was stark, like the difference between like just like, oh wow, that's clearly a bad guy, I get it. But then like he would come like charging at me, I'd be like, he's not in the same plane as me, like knock me on my butt, and I'd be like, oh, okay, no, it's on now. And I'd walk back up to him, just swing fervently at his left shoulder as he like looked on and laughed. And I'm like, I just want to hit you.
No, that's fair. And this is actually something about beat 'em up style games I've always disliked, is that side-scrolling beat 'em up games are, I mean, they're never entirely side-scrolling. There's always the faux Z dimension.
Right.
So you need some sort of visual cue that you are on a plane of existence that can interact with their plane of existence. And yes. Golden Axe, I'm willing to accept like, oh, there's these obvious cues. It's just as an adult playing modern games, you don't know how to recognize them. I did not see any. And I don't recall the enemies ever whiffing. Like, I can't think of a time where they were like, oh, swing and a miss. Like, if they swung, they hit me. And I'm not saying that they were able to hit me at a time I couldn't have hit them. It's that the computer knows when it's on a plane that will intersect with your plane. And I felt like that was information I didn't always have.
Yes. No, like the computer would like you, it was like almost a weird form of like precognition, in a sense that like you're not sure whether or not you're in the same plane as the bad guy, and then right as the computer starts to swing, you're like, apparently I am. And that's the last thought in your head before like you just get your nose spread out all over your face, like it was wildly frustrating. And you would know better than I would, but my knee-jerk reaction after I had to go buy a new TV from putting my controller through my old one was like, I feel like in later games, or at least in more successful games or whatever, we don't really deal with this as much because we now have the actual third dimension. It's like that. I think an easy solve to that would be that the computers, like the width of the plane that it has to be in, is tighter than yours. Yes. Like they just gave you that little affordance where like your window was just a little bit wider, so that way you could hit the computer when they couldn't technically hit you. That would make the game, I want to say more enjoyable, but instead of saying that, I'm just going to say enjoyable. It would make the game enjoyable.
Enjoyable, yes.
Yeah, because more enjoyable, any multiple of 0 is still 0, right?
So by any chance, did you get to play the 2-player of this at all?
I did not, because I love my wife.
Okay, yeah, no, that checks out. So we'll dive into that a little bit when we talk about the mechanics. Okay. But I mean, this is my one major gripe with this style of game, but the graphics in general in this game, is that you didn't always know where anything.
Yeah.
Period. Like that is the end of that sentence. Like you can always see all the characters, but the hitbox is unknown to you, and
Yes.
there are certain things that they tried to mix up the characters to, like the Valkyrie has a butter knife, but she has like her cool flying kick when she dashes, whereas like the barbarian guy has like I don't know, like Sting from Bilbo.
Right. Yep.
So he has like something more dramatic of a hitbox, but his dash is like a shoulder bump, and it's like the very edge of his shoulder is against the edge of the hitbox. So there's just this little tiny area where you can hit, and you are probably going to screw it up because they can hit you before you can hit them. And then, of course, the dwarf has like his screen covering battle axe with every single swipe hits something somewhere.
Oh, yes. And we can discuss it more when we get into the mechanics. But learning, and I want to say learning because I don't think I knew this, but learning which characters like to play was like a key for me for like, figuring out. It was like slowly waking up from like, from like being knocked unconscious and being like, oh, right, I'm alive and playing a video game, I guess, and like, so as far as the being in the same plane as your bad guy, that was nightmarish. Also, for the visuals, and again, nostalgia goggles abounding. There were so few sprites, right?
Yeah.
Like there was
the game's pretty lightweight.
Yeah, like I mean, I just remember when I was playing this game back in the day, being like, "Oh yeah, man, we're on like this flying eagle now, and oh my god, we were on a tortoise the whole time, and oh, there are bad guys everywhere." But now playing through, I'm like, "Oh, it's the same guy as before, but now he's pink. Oh, now he's gray. Oh no, what am I gonna?" I was just kind of like, "Oh, there's like 4 bad guys in this thing. There's Goblin Dude, weird. It looked, I don't know, like the weird bald guy." I don't want
the giant.
No, not the giant fat bald guys, like the smaller henchman-y bald guys.
Yeah, no, I think those are bald guys.
Yeah, they're just bald guys. Yeah. And then and side note too, what are they hitting you with?
I'm gonna go with cudgels because I don't have a picture in front of me.
No, because like
cudgels feels like a broad enough category.
Well, yeah, I mean, in the same way, it's like I'm hitting you with this like small glass. It's a cudgel, whatever. But no, I don't know, man. Like it always looked like, and still does. And this is actually something that again brought to my attention where I was like, thing A, and she's like, not thing A at all, thing B. I'm like, that's what that is. Thank you for resolving that because I've been going on for 2 decades. It looks like they're holding a bunch of grapes, and they're just hitting you.
I'm gonna go with
grapes.
I'm gonna go with bouquet.
Ooh, yeah, no, they're beating you to death with flowers. That is way better.
I just found a picture of the sprite online, and bouquet. It looks like a bouquet of flowers.
Yeah, it's like I don't know like what they're hitting me with. So there's that, and then also the whatever and the things that you hit to get like potions, right?
Are you gonna say squirrels? Because they look like squirrels.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I feel a lot better now. Thank you. Okay, God, like because Megan's like, oh yeah, those little men with sacks, and I was like, what the hell are you talking about? And she's like, yeah, the guys with the sacks, yeah, they're like little. I was like, those aren't squirrels, and she's like, well, when you beat them, their sacks go away because their sacks are empty. I'm like, I just thought their tails deflated. Like I don't.
Yeah, no, I'm halfway between you and Megan on this because at first I was like, little squirrel men with potions. That's weird. And then after I'd been playing for a while, I was like, oh, they're okay. I see. It's like their little bag, and then the bag is empty if you knock all the potions out of them. And then every time I saw one after that, in the back of my mind, it was like, nah, dude, those are squirrels. I was like, no, shut up, id. Those are definitely little men with bags. Nah, dude, those are squirrels. Look at them. Look at the big fluffy tails.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, I mean, like, and I remember the time, like, it's kind of like if somebody says like thing A when you're young and it's completely right. Okay, actually a much better analogy is it's very similar to like when you're a kid and you get the lyrics to a Disney song wrong and you keep singing the song wrong until
that's just stuck with you forever.
Yeah, until like you're like 18 and should way know better, like it was that where I was just like, now I'm 31 and I'm just still all I can see are the squirrels until Megan said like, no, those are people. I'm like, So they are, but no, squirrels for days. So
yeah, I feel like this is a quirky limitation of the human psyche. Is like if every time you saw an image, your brain had to reinterpret it like you were seeing it for the first time, we would have to be just way smarter, right? Like at some point when you were a child and I was a child, we decided that those were squirrels, and then our brains stopped trying to see anything else.
Yeah. Because it's just like, no, I know what that is now. And I think especially with things where it's like your brain says like, that is a tiny, cute squirrel in a TV screen. And most importantly, it's not going to kill you. So yes. I don't have to interpret what that is anymore. It's something that's not a threat. So squirrel, and you're done here, you know?
Yeah. I will say I do enjoy some of the artwork, like the giant, seemingly out of place, terrifying skeleton monster on the character select screen. It's like he's got his hands out. Like that was actually, I mean, for graphics of that era, like it was pretty detailed. It was pretty cool looking. And then there's other sprites that have like 2 dots and a dash as their entire facial structure.
Yeah, and especially like the skeletons in particular. So like I thought, and this will also lead into the sound quality, but like I thought that some of the graphics, that like limitations, right? And unlike with like other games where if it's over the top and very cartoony, they can take more liberties with it, but they're trying to represent like real things, right? So when you knock the skeletons onto the ground, like you have shattered their jaw, like like they are messed up. And so yeah, so I mean, like there were some of those visuals that were more gruesome than like they needed to be, because like there's like trying their best to like, well, we can't just like do the Dragon Ball Z thing with like breathing dead bodies. Like we can't just have them like laying on their back and like drifting off to sleep. We have to have some visual to show that they're dead, but at the same point in time, you're like, yeah, that was a little bit more visceral than I think you intended.
Yeah, I will say just the one last thing about the visuals, and we don't have to, and probably should not go off into a crazy political discussion, but I was intensely aware as an adult, something that no one who's a child I think would have recognized at this time in history. But I mean, this is 89, right? And this whole thing is very like Conan the Barbarian.
Yes.
And I mean, all of the women are in what basically amounts to fetish gear.
Oh, yes.
But all of the men are also in what basically amounts to fetish gear. But I mean, the proportions are very like 80s metal, like male power fantasy, like big muscular men fighting for the safety of the women. Cause you'll notice like the 2 or 3 times in the game, you see like people fleeing. It's always women and children.
Yeah. But to be fair, and like I said, because I did notice, because the first sprite because I played all 3, because I was like, I want to, get a feel for it, right?
Yeah. I want to drink 3 different kinds of terrible drink.
Exactly. So the first one I did pick though was the Valkyrie, right? And I just remember like saying like, okay, I need to go up on the map a little bit, and just being like, yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
Whatever, it happened. It was a time in history. Let's all just move on with life. But like, and so like all of the men are very scantily clad, all the women are very scantily clad, and there is a mix of male and female like enemies. Like there's like the dragon riders, and I think they're predominantly women.
So like, I think all of the dragon riders are women, and then there are also women that are just like about.
Yeah. So I mean, like it I'm not saying that it's good. I am saying that there were many games at the time that were way worse. So,
it's like a 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Like women can be combatants. Also, they are naked.
Yeah, exactly. But the men are naked too. So it's okay. It's like, is it? I don't know.
Is it? I'm not sure that more nakedness is the solution.
It's like, so yeah. So basically they're like, like, the women are half naked. It's like, well, no, they should be wearing clothes. No, we could do that, but bear with me for a second. Just
hear me out. And man, the skeleton's got nothing on.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like that's probably why they decided on skeleton sprites, was they were like, we have to normalize this, so we'll just take even more off. It's like, well, we can't make them naked. No, the skin too, and all of
musculature. It's all going. It's all going.
One other thing too, I did want to touch on with the visuals was there were sometimes when I felt that the visuals were inadequate. And there was one time that I can point to very specifically, which is, I think it's in the second level, where you go like down a little bit, and then behind you there's a blue ocean, right? And and by blue ocean I mean blue edge of the universe, where if you come too close to it, you immediately see your death.
Yeah, no, it is a bottomless void that has. What's frustrating about that is there's no other place in the game that has a similar bottomless void. So it's not like they're teaching you anything about the universe. It's just like, oh, hey, here's a pit you can die in. What did you learn? Not to jump in that pit. That will never benefit you.
Not to jump in that one pit.
Yes.
Although I was
specifically.
I was proud of myself because like I saw that, and like I remember thinking like, man, modern games would never let me die in this. This is not a modern game. Let me try something. So like one of the bad guys like started like walk towards me, and so I like backed up like right by it, and then like right when he started to charge, I just like went down a couple of spaces, so I was no longer, and I just watched him jump to his death, and I was like, yes, awesome, I am clever as hell. And then another enemy came and rammed me into the pit, and I was like, just like, no good deed.
Nope. Yeah, the fact that you could hit them off of the edge of the world at least was like, well, you're consistent.
Oh yeah, the game is nothing if not bone-crushingly consistent. Like, which I mean, in a way, is like it actually. Yeah, this is a great example of equal not always being fair. So the game is ridiculously equal between you and this AI that can process things way faster than you ever could. So this is like, what was that old thing? It's John Henry versus the steam train, like, like you're just like desperately trying to use all of your like human intuition against this soulless computer that has just got right on top of it timing.
So let's talk about the music. So, I didn't love it.
Yeah. The music was kind of innocuous to me. Like it was just kind of like,
My problem with the music is, and this is a limitation of the hardware at the time, but if you ever like listen to anybody who makes chiptune talk about it, they had lots of clever tricks for taking something that only had like 4 channels and making it sound like more by using like syncopation. So your brain kind of interprets it as 2 sounds at the same time, but it's actually like it's technically one sound after another. And there's all kinds of clever wizardry that they've done with chiptune, and obviously later systems, because I mean this, like I said, this was an arcade cabinet that they converted to a home console. So later systems had more sophisticated sound chips in them, but I don't know. The whole thing felt like the melodies were good, but all the sound effects were like really shrill and like leaned a lot toward the tenor side of sounds, maybe because those carried better in like a noisy arcade. But I mean, when you kill people, they go like, ah, and it makes like, and
yes.
there's each character type has like exactly one like death scream.
Yep.
So you hear it a million times.
Yeah, no, because that's the thing. The music was innocuous to me. The sound effects, on the other hand, I'll hear in my nightmares until the end of days, because, like, because like like you kill a guy, right, and he goes like like that, like and you just kind of like. Because I mean, really, like this is not a game. There's no moral meter. There's no moral choices to be had. You're killing a guy called Death Adder, so probably not a good dude. I don't know why I felt so guilty, like with every life that I took that I had no choice but to take, and I think it was because of the screaming. Especially whenever you killed a female sprite, it was just that like high pitched like squeal of like, oh my god, it was just. It was just awful. And also too, it is immersion breaking when the whatever 150-pound goblin that you just killed and the I'm guessing 500-pound sumo wrestler that was like 8 feet tall, they both like make the exact same sound when they die. I'm like, so that means that they have like the same voice. So that either means that the goblin had like this resounding bass, or like just imagine in your head like the goblin sounding what you imagine the sumo wrestler to sound like, or the sumo wrestler sounding what you in your mind imagine the goblin to sound like. Like both of those are weird, but since they both have the same death scream, stands to reason that they had similar voices. So I don't know. I didn't like any of that.
Yeah, no. And you know that they were capable of doing sounds in the bass range because every time you swung a weapon, it went like whoosh. And it was like this unnaturally deep, like the way ants must hear like human footsteps going overhead. Like just this incredible, like deep, resounding. It's like what kind of blade makes that noise? I mean, like I know I'm being overly hard on it for comedic effect, haha. But like, the sounds just, I don't know if when they ported them, they were lazy in the way that they ported them. I don't know if they were going for like a particular style and it just didn't turn out. There's no end of possible reasons, but it just was jarring. Like the music was like difficult to listen to. The screams were like taxing on your soul. And there's only a handful of sound effects, so it's like, oh, do you not like that? Get ready to hear it 100,000 more times.
Strap in, because this is your life now, is listening to these screams. And I don't, again, like big fan of like fantasy mythos and all this sort of stuff. So I do have a whole bunch of like headcanon built up around like not this particular game, but games like this. I didn't care for the skeletons having the same death scream as
the guys.
Yeah, because like the skeleton's like, "Arr!" I'm like, what? Okay, overthinking it, but where are his vocal cords, man? Like, how is he making they're supposed to be quiet, and that's like supposed to be like the whole thing, that like makes them like scary and stuff like that. And I was like, this is, and it doesn't like, okay, so. To be entirely honest, part of the reason why I'm saying this now is because I gave this exact same diatribe to Megan, and it was after the skeleton killed me 15 times.
Ah, yes.
And so I was just like finding anything about him to hate. So
yeah, well, you're ugly and your sword is rusty.
Yeah, you're a jerk. I don't like you very much.
No, that's fair. I mean, I don't want to. I have basically nothing good to say about the music except that. And this is really grasping at straws, but the magic sound effects are like kind of neat. Because they're different, right? It's not like they're really good, but they are distinctly unique from other sound effects in the game. Like none of the weapons or characters make noises quite like those noises, and those noises are a little bit more bass heavy. So with everything else being so trebly, they feel like more like they reverberate more. And when the game starts, and I don't want to do it because I'm gonna like completely butcher it, but you know what I mean. Like it's the way the song starts is like a creepy like like
yeah.
It's like that is it's like
what? Run that by me again.
No. People can just back the podcast up 15 seconds if they want to suffer through that another time.
I am. I'm gonna time mark this. I'm just gonna hit it on repeat.
Just over and over. But that it felt like with the limited instrument set and the limited amount of sounds I could play at the same time, like it's a very memorable little like whatever you would call that in music theory. Like it just like the second I turned the game on for the first time, having not played it in I don't know how many years, I was like, oh, Golden Axe, like that. Yeah. That part felt incredibly familiar for being something so simple that you then never hear again because you only hear it on the new game screen.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, like I said, like to me, the nice thing I have to say is that the music was innocuous. Like that it just, it wasn't offensive. So that's like a 10 for this game because it's not that bad, but like, no, I mean, like I said, like the sound effects were so startlingly jarring that it overwhelmed the music. Like that's all I can like hear, like if you said like hum a few bars of Golden Axe to me, I'd be like, I just start screaming because that's all I remember are those screams.
No, that checks out. So I think we should talk about controls and mechanics kind of together because the controls, I mean, like there are some.
Yeah.
But
you can move in 4 whole directions, man. Like it's, I mean, wait, 8? Sorry, it's just twice as many.
So my problem is with the controls is that I looked at the control setup like in the options menu. And I mean your controls are like left, right, up, down, which is fine. And then you have jump, attack, and magic.
Right.
And that's fine, but if you do, and I know this from watching people who remember this game fondly play it, there are actually ways you can do like other types of attack by like doing things with the joystick at the right time.
Really?
And yes, and that is not communicated to you in any significant way. And I assume that at best they're expecting you to be like furiously waggling the joystick in the arcade while you're attacking, and then maybe being like, oh wait, how did I do that? And then by trial and error you would suss it out. So I'm willing to admit that trying to play it now as a modern gamer, I like basically treated it like an ignorant child. And I was like, oh, you can, attack. You can attack repeatedly. You can attack while jumping. And you can do this little dash. I don't even know why I guessed at that. I must have just remembered. But like it never occurred to me to look for other like combos. And then when I saw someone do it, I was like, why? Why did that not occur to me?
Well, no, and okay. I'm gonna come to your defense here, and don't take it as me defending you. Take it as me attacking the game. So
no, that's fair.
No, here's my thoughts on that. Is that most games have things like that, but the game. So here's what I think a game should assume a player will do: is press all of the buttons. So you as a game developer should be able to rely on somebody to know what each of the buttons do, at least when the game first starts, because
sure.
The game first starts, you press all the buttons, you kind of figure out what all the different buttons do. If you want them to know or be able to do anything more complex than that, you have to teach it to them. And it doesn't mean in a text-heavy tutorial or in a, like, oh, well, when you do these two things, like just shut up, you don't need that. But like games like, they're heralded for having amazing tutorials like Mario or things like that, they do that where basically like they'll set up a situation where you're almost certainly going to do thing A naturally. And then you'll see what the result of that is. And then you go like, oh, okay. And then you learn it, and the game did nothing like that. Like
nope.
Yeah, I mean, like they never, if they wanted to, what they could have done is like put you into an area that, like where you had to use this particular skill to get out of it, and then that's your gating mechanic. It's like, well, we know that they can't get past this point without learning this particular skill. And then even if it's just like, like one of those things that were really common in arcades where it just shows like the joystick, like do this and then A, and then you go like,
half circle forward or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you're like, oh, okay. And then you do it, and you're like, oh, wow, neat. And now this is a skill that the developer now knows that I have. So, so on and so forth. But
now they can expect me to do it because they've taught it to me.
Right. But this was not that. In fact, speaking of, game mechanics and things like that, I did not know until I got frustrated that there was an option to increase your life by like 33%. Because that was necessary. Because like I was like, okay, I was like, all right, I'm gonna play through. And I did it. And my first playthrough is the Valkyrie, and I got just thoroughly wrecked. Right.
Oh yes.
And then the second time I played through as Conan the Barbarian, and that was my shortest playthrough because I realized something that I haven't seen happen in games in quite some time. But I remembered it now, and I was like, oh, right. And then all that ire came back, which was I got about a third of the way through the game, and I played one section particularly poorly, and I reset it because I said, like, there's absolutely no way for me to recover from this. Like, my last
I have
playthrough
screwed up too hard.
Yeah, like, exactly. Like, I was like, I got hit like 10 additional times. That means I'm like 10 more health bars down than I was the last time I was here and couldn't complete the game. So there's no point in me continuing on. So I just reset it. And then it was at that point I was like, holy mother, I can increase my life. Why would I? Who would ever not want to do that? And then, of course, you also decrease your life. I'm like, and why? I mean, oh God, why?
Well, and I mean, this is like a bit of a UX complaint, right? Is like, hey, if you had put that on the main screen, you could have called it easy, normal, and hard, and everyone would have more or less understood what you were getting at.
Yeah. Yeah, because because that's the thing is that there's arcade mode and then beginner mode, which I admit I was going to look into, and then I didn't because I didn't want to play the game anymore.
Oh no,
But
beginner mood is a mode. Yeah, mood. I'm in a beginner mood. Beginner mode is like a total screw you that I'm sure was like a thing they added when they ported it right out of the arcade. Is and you realize anything that is seems like unfair or cheaty, you can always just ease your guilt by saying like, oh well, they were just trying to scam quarters out of little kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, oh, the game cheated because they were just trying to steal my quarters. But the beginner mode, there's I think a few fewer enemies, and when you get to like this, I don't remember when, but you get to an arbitrary point, and then the game just goes, all right, we're done. Play arcade if you want the rest.
really,
Yeah, yeah. It's like 1.5 stages in or something. It's just like that was neat. Want to see what the rest of the game is like, and it's like, could you
want to see what the rest of the game is like? Grow a pair, basically.
Yeah, I don't know why they opted for this mode. Like, I don't know what the point of this mode is. Like, if they wanted to have an easier version of the game, then you could just have an easier version of the game. And if you don't want to support an easier version of the game, don't put in easy mode, but just for the first level.
Yeah, like, I mean, maybe it's, yeah, no, I can't. The only good reason I could think of for that would be, oh, well, it's to like familiarize yourself with the mechanics. But in a game where you are one reset button away from trying again, like that's an insanely weird, bizarre choice. And so anyway, so then that speaks to what you were saying, which is that like, many games nowadays, like say like, how you want to play the game. Do you want to play it on easy mode? This is what your experience is going to be like, and then it's like normal, hard, and hang yourself, and then hang yourself and your family, and then and it goes up from there. But like
and
like,
on
and as you do, but yeah, so like it has all those different modes at the beginning, and even that, from what I've like read and discussed with other people, is considered to be like the poor man's choice. Like, like there are better ways to scale difficulty than like an options menu at the beginning, and this didn't even have that. So
no, and I mean, I don't like continually going to the well of, well, it was an arcade game, but I mean it's like if you have a dog and you'd rather have a cat, it's a fair point to say like, well, this dog's parents were both dogs. And that is why this dog is a dog. Like this home console game came from an arcade cabinet, and that influenced everything about the way it looks, the way it sounds, the gameplay, the mechanics, the controls. Like presumably in the arcade, it had a joystick and not a thumb pad. Like there's just all of these things that you could say are good or bad, but that are impossible to separate from its pedigree.
Okay, so let's that is true. However, to go with your analogy, right? I think that would be more akin to if I had a hunting murder dog, right? And I, the owner of the dog, deliberately said, I am now going to make it so that way you can bring this dog into your home with children. I should take some degree of responsibility to housebreak that dog to the point where it's not going to eat your family, So yes, no, I mean,
I got like nothing to add to that.
I definitely. So I mean, yes, I agree that like yes, it is definitely an arcade game, and you can definitely see in and out the way it is. But yeah, there's just some things that like when I'm playing a game in my home, I would like to see, and yeah, so even if it just said like hey, check out the options menu for making the game. I don't even want to say playable, not even easier. Do you want to see the end? This option on.
So this is a big difference between your experience and mine, on this replay is I played for maybe about half an hour, 40 minutes on my own. And then I said to Susan, I was like, hey, instead of watching, like Luke Cage or whatever show we're in the middle of right now, do you want to play Golden Axe with me? And she was like, oh, what is that? And I showed it to her and she was like, oh, okay. Because I mean,
in her mind, like, not really, but
yeah. Yeah, because Sue's been a gamer for a long time, and she's actually played side-scrolling beat 'em ups before with me. Like we played Scott Pilgrim versus the World a lot together when that game first came out. So
Nice.
nothing about this experience was foreign to her, and yet you could just tell by looking at like the age of it and how much I was cursing at it that she was like, I don't really want to do this. but she's cool, so she played, and it is. The difference between single player and two player is that there's another player. There aren't more. There are not more enemies. The enemies are not stronger. There's no other difference. So adding a second person, unless that person is horrible, is a massive bonus. Except friendly fire.
Really?
Oh my yes.
Friendly fire is on.
Friendly fire is the only way. And because of the aforementioned lack of clarity around hitboxes, you can't really gang up on a single enemy. You kind of need to steer clear of each other. And I'm sure that there are people who are playing and thinking like, well, that's how it would it's a video game. I don't need there are certain things that I'm willing to forego realism on to add enjoyment. Friendly fire is one of those things.
Yes. No, friendly fire is typically pretty game breaking, especially in a real-time multiplayer, game. Because in a strategy game where you can sit there and you can think through your movements and all sorts of stuff. If I knee jerk go oh my God, fireball, and I nuke my entire team, you don't want to do. So wait, what about with magic attacks? Do you hit your
magic? No friendly fire.
Okay, I was gonna say
because magic always automatically hits everyone on the screen, which is actually another annoying inconsistency. Is that magic hits everyone on the screen, and you may have noticed while you were playing that the amount of screen you can go onto and the amount of screen the enemies can go onto are two different screens. So while I was, because there's about, at least on the TV I was playing on, there's what amounted to about a half an inch on each side of the screen where things can be going on, but I was not invited to that party.
Yep.
So one of the squirrels, I knocked a potion out of him and it fell right into that little stripe of screen. And I walk over to get it, and I now look like I'm a terrible out of work mime, walking forward and not getting anywhere. And I'm like, I want to pick up that damn potion. Why am I not picking up that damn potion?
Yeah, no, my experience with that was also terrible because at one point I was oh man, I'm gonna go get this bad guy, and I ran and I drop kicked him in the face, which is totally a legitimate fighting technique, and and I knocked him off of the screen, but I could still see him, just a little bit, and I was like, I'm gonna get you, and I swung at him, and I just in my mind I just whiffed in front of him, and then his mouth widened into a toothy grin as he beat the ever-loving mess out of me. Yeah, because and I could not hit him because he was off the screen, And so I was like, all right, fine, whatever, regroup. And then the other time that happened was when I knocked somebody off the screen. I was like, whatever. And then he came flying out of nowhere, with his drop kick and laid me out. And I was like, I mean, honestly, this game made me sit down. When I got done, I put the controller down, took a deep breath, and I said, I'm not sure I understood what fun was when I was young.
I mean, you had less of a scope of things that were fun. So you were out of all the things that I've experienced, this is one of them.
Yeah. And also I think too, the amount of time, because you're well, that was very frustrating or whatever, but hey, I'm a kid. All I have to do is go to school. And aside from that, I just have fun all the time. Now I'm just kind of man, it's been an hour of my own personal time just getting slogged through that. I don't like me. That was not a good idea.
So in defense of consistent mechanics, the game is nothing if not consistent. Yes. And if you learn the secrets, you can exploit them 100% of the time, right? Because the controls are you don't inch forward like you do in modern games. You take a predictable amount of movement all the time. And there are a couple places like in the third act or whatever episode level, where you're like going up the steps and there's like skeletons, and then bad guys, and they pop up out of the ground.
Yeah. Which is, by the way, you're on an eagle at that point in time.
Yeah.
So that eagle has some serious medical issues, like if like skeletons are bursting out of its flesh. But yes, continue.
This is where the glass was shattered for you, and you're like, this just isn't believable at all.
Yeah, no, I mean, like taking a tortoise, the tortoise mobile. I mean, that's fine. I mean, that Aang did it in Avatar, so obviously it's like rooted in reality. But yeah, no, that was the
well-known documentary film Avatar: The Last Airbender. But yeah, so there for whatever reason they just didn't program the enemies to change levels. Like the enemies can't do anything that requires a jump. So if you make them come up out of the ground and then you drop back down onto the thing, you are now in a situation where you can interact with their hitbox and they cannot interact with yours. And you can just stand there and wail on them until they die.
Nice.
And then there's a couple other places where the trigger box, like, because all the enemies are standing still until like a thing happens. And most of the time, the thing happening is that you have entered the screen at all. But there are other enemies that like stand there and laugh at you like big douches until you like enter their trigger zone. And it might be, outside of their hitbox. It might be inside of their hitbox, especially for those like giant guys. But there's a couple, I know a couple of the like women enemies. I don't know if they're also called Valkyries, but like the women enemies. Right. And you can enter their hitbox from like the top, and their trigger box is like thinner than their hitbox. And you can just stand there and like punch them in the face over and over, and they will do nothing about it.
See, I didn't notice that because I didn't get that fine into it, but I did notice that a couple of the Valkyries, we'll just Valkyries across the board, like there was like one time where I entered a screen, and I mean, like, I'm playing this game at this point as like a, like I have to play it, I have to get through this, but I want it now not to be challenging, but as painless as possible. So like, I like walk up to like these two Valkyries who are just like looking at you, like laughing, like you said, just like, you're like, oh, ha, look at you, dwarf / human male / human female. Yeah. So I was like, all right, fine. So I walked up and I just like just full on just shouldered one in the face, and then she like gets up to come, wreck me. And her friend is continuing to laugh. Now I assume at her, because I'm like, why aren't you like assisting in any way? You know what? Screw it. And so all I do is I just like I stole something. I was like, shh, maybe no one will notice. So I just like kited her like up to the top of the screen and then like beat her to death and then like came back for her ally, but I was just kind of like I felt like I got away with something, like,
yeah. And that's the thing about the mechanics is if you were able to enter that fight the same way, it would have happened exactly the same way again. Because it's not really AI. It's pre-programmed triggers. And I mean, you could say the same about modern games, but the list of triggers and the list of responses is much, much, much shorter.
Yeah. No, and the one other thing that I thought was interesting, and it was very gamey. So like if all of a sudden my fourth wall hadn't been shattered and like my suspension of disbelief like gone long ago, it would have probably been immersion breaking. But like it's when you're getting ready to get onto the back of the skeleton infested eagle, and you're like there's like that like weird like kind of like platformy-esque area, but like I realized that the bad guys will follow you up there. And I'm like, that's neat. And I was like, kind of like starting to run away, like towards the bottom of one of them. And I started to come back up, and he was trying to like get in the same, plane as me, but he's like a half second delayed. So he went 2 feet lower and just walked off to his death, And I was like, wonder if that's recreatable. And so I went and found the next dude. I was like, hey, no, come here for a second. I just want to talk to you for a minute. Oh, no, to your death. And then, I was able to do it with all of the guys in that screen. And I was just so to your credit, like you're saying, like very consistent, man. Every single one of them just got tired of living at about the same time.
Yeah, and I think, at least in a way, that does make that kind of game a little bit more enjoyable, because you can then go over to your friend's house and like you're incentivized to try and remember that stuff because it's repeatable and in some cases really funny. So
there was that, and one other one where like, because Megan is normally reading while I'm playing these, so like she'll like intermittently watch, and there's one when you're getting off of the skeleton infested eagle where like there's a long like thin platform and like clear sky behind you. So in this case, you absolutely know that is a place that will kill you, you know? And I was like the dwarf and I had like my ultimate saved up or whatever. So I was just like, whatever. And so I just hit it because I knew that knocks everyone down. And because the area they needed to be on was so thin, it just knocked everybody off of the platform and just auto killed everyone. I was like, win, moving on with life. Just that was it. So
I am the dwarf. So, this is actually something, speaking of magic, that I thought was really well thought out, with like the limited complications they wanted to introduce, which is the Valkyrie has the most powerful magic. The barbarian guy has the medium magic and medium physical attack. And then the dwarf has the weakest magic, but the highest physical attack. So there's differences to their abilities as well as the way they just physically move and the size of their hitbox and things, which is, expected because they look different. But
yes.
I thought the magic thing was actually kind of neat because you have to, your magic is always pump and dump, right? Like you can't say like, well, I'll use half this time and half next time. Oh no, I'm only going to use a quarter this time because these are wimpy enemies. Like if you have your magic meter filled all the way up, you are killing everything. So if there's a single enemy on the screen or if you're fighting last boss, like that's it. And that puts in a cool kind of incentive to like remember how far you are to the boss so you can like try and hold out, or like, okay, am I even gonna make it to the boss if I don't use my magic right now? Because like there's way too many enemies on the screen. And I felt like that added a neat little what do you call it? It was a narrow but deep strategy, right? Like it's very easy to understand, but a fair amount of complexity in how you would actually employ it. And the game is pretty generous with magic. Like every couple screens, there's a little squirrel guy. In between levels, there's two squirrel guys, the food squirrel guy and the magic squirrel guy. So it's like you can be reckless with your magic if you want, or you can be the Valkyrie and store it up till you get to like the level 6 magic where it's as full as it can be, and then just burn the whole world down.
Yes. Yeah. And then summon your mighty dragon of dragoning. Yes. No, actually,
that was actually in the game's defense for visuals. That was a spectacular attention to detail, having each level of magic look different.
Yeah, I definitely like that. And that's one of the things I remembered the most about the game was like, wanting to get like the super ultimate magic, and then like things like that. And actually, because like to me, the magic was like the only fun part of the game. The unfortunate thing being though is that you do tend to hoard it because you want to like be able to use it on like the bosses or whatever. So like it's a whole bunch of slogging through am I in the same plane of my enemies for like at like 10 seconds of, oh my god, this looks really cool and this was really fun. No, I gotta go back. But actually no, I had one like narratively strong moment with the game where basically like you said, where like I was like, it was gonna be my final fight with Death Adder, and I had gotten to him once before,
Oh my god, you actually made it to the final boss?
The game is remarkably short.
I mean, yes, it is, but I did not get that far.
Oh yeah, no, I did twice. So like the first time I got there, like I died, right? The second time I did it, I was playing as the dwarf, right? And I had the health up and all this sort of stuff, but like I had like I think like 0 lives left or something like that. But I was on like I was up against the wall, and it was right before I was about to get to the bad guy where I was like, if I don't use this now, I'm gonna die, So I used my magic, killed the bad guys, but as I used it, I realized I was already dead because like I was now going into a fight that I was unable to win, magicked up with tons of life. Now with like no magic and no life, it's like,
but that survival instinct kicked in.
Yeah, exactly. It was just like no, and all of a sudden I felt like was it Bender, where he's just kind of like, like, kill my friends, just give me another couple seconds of sweet life, Where it's like, all I've done is bought myself like 30 seconds maybe. But yeah, no, so you never actually got to like Death Adder?
Well, okay, so here's how it went down, right? So on my own, I don't know, I didn't make it far like at all, because this was never my style of game. Not when I was a lad, not when I was a teen, not as an adult. Like the beat 'em up style of game for some reason just does not grok with me. Like I enjoy them generally, but like I was never good at Final Fight. I wasn't that great at Scott Pilgrim versus the World, but like I still generally enjoy them. Or Streets of Rage, another ridiculous game about 80s people fighting in alleyways.
Eat rotten chicken that you find in dumpsters, and that makes you healthier somehow.
I think Final Fight might have had the chicken dumpsters.
Because I feel like you should take damage from eating dumpster chicken, not get healthier.
It should be like the poison mushrooms in the later Mario games. Like you have to look at the chicken and see if it's like spoiled or not.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden it's not Final Fight anymore. It's just Chicken Inspector, like 47. Like it's the most boring game ever.
I took a nosedive like super fast. But so on my own, I did not get very far at all. And then with Susan, which is why I noticed the stark contrast in difficulty when you have a second player, we, on like our first try, got to, I think Death Adder Jr., the one where like the king and queen come down.
Wait, I might not have gotten as far as I thought I did.
Oh, snap. Yeah. So you're in front of a building, and there's the dude that looks like Death Adder, but it's not Death Adder.
Okay, then that is as far as I got.
Okay, that's more believable based on your overall performance as you've described it.
Yes.
Yeah. So you beat that
to that guy.
Yeah, you beat that guy, and then the king and queen come down, and the king and princess, king and princess. So the woman, whoever, she like runs over to the king and then starts talking about. It's like the only dialogue in the game where she's like, that big guy like was so mean to us, but I don't think he's the man in charge. I've seen him go in there and heard them shout orders at him or something like that. And then you go in the door. It's like a 1980s cutscene. It's actually it's a little. It was kind of nice. It's like a break from the rest of the game. And then you go in, and then there's another level. And then you fight another big guy that's identical to Death Adder, but with a different color. And then you go through another level, and there's another guy, and that's Death Adder. So I made it with Susan to post first Death Adder, False Peak, and then we made it through most of like that next level, and then we died. And then this kind of sums up my answer to the question we have to ask, which is like, does it hold up? Which is, after we beat the false boss and then we got through most of this level and then died, and then the continue screen comes up, Susan just put the controller kind of down toward the ground. Like she didn't put it down, it was still in her hands, but she put it down toward the ground and just turned to me and went, "Can we stop?" and I just went, yeah, let's stop. I learned everything I need to know.
No, actually, so like I said, like I thought I had gotten to the boss, and what you just gave me was 5, 10 times, 10 times at the most.
Yep.
The game was only using 1% of its true power, and I'm like, no, you're bluffing. But then like you like described the whole thing, it's like he's not bluffing. So that almost makes me feel better, because like I was never even close to beating the game. Like I thought it was like getting there. I was like, because like I was fighting the big bad, and I was like, oh man, it's just like on pins and needles. But no, I mean, like if I was 0 lives, 0 health, and like beat that guy, and he's like, no, there's more to go. I'd be like, oh well, I mean, look at me. I am a I am but a tiny dwarf covered in blood and sans magic. Like just you kill me, please.
Yeah.
Like you kill me here.
Yeah, no, you get to that game or that part of the game, and the game uses its one and only cutscene to go Rafflecopter, fourth form Frieza, and then it's just and it's not even just like there's more. It's not even just that there's more bosses. There's also additional levels, and for some reason, after you go indoors, that level has like several platforming challenges, and this game is not designed for platforming challenges.
No, and to be fair, in defense of the game, I can think of all the platforming I do around my house every day.
Yeah.
Where
and why that's all indoors and not on the back of Skeleton Eagle or something.
I don't know. That's so weird. Yeah, because it's just kind of like I can't think of like being like, hey, honey, can you come into the kitchen real fast, but don't forget to jump over the lake of lava. It's like that's not generally indoors. That's a poorly crafted house. I mean, that's what happens when you use magical gnome contractors. I'm just saying,
Stupid gnomes. That is, I think. The first fake boss is about 2/3 of the way through the game. Like you don't do that many more levels before you hit the next fake boss, and then that many more levels before the next fake boss. So you in total length of game, you were pretty close to the end, but in total difficulty of game, like you were, yeah.
No, because that's the thing is that, and I don't remember anything about what you just said, which means also as a kid I was not even close, so that's also a thing. But no, I mean, like I just remember being like, all right, we got to go kill Death Adder. Neat. All right, so we crossed the tortoise. Neat. Okay, we got on an eagle. All right, cool. Yeah, now the final boss begins. I'm like, wait, really? I mean, good. I want this to end. I want the sweet release of this not happening to me anymore. But really? Whatever, and then like big giant guy who looks unlike the other 4 people that you fought so far comes out. Like, no reason to think that's not Death Adder. So I mean, they knew what they were doing. They were like,
yeah.
Developers.
No, and it's I mean that's like, it's symbolic of the designers wanting to do things with video games that the technology was not yet there to support, right? They obviously we're like, okay, we want to have like this first part of the game that like kind of teaches you how to play the game, and then you're going to fight this guy and you're probably going to die like 20 times, but by the time you beat him, then you realize like there's actually like more game, and the next like level or two are going to be harder because the jumping mechanic is just really not designed for platforming. Nope. I think it's a little funny that, when you play a game like a Sonic or a Mario or a Mega Man or like a game designed for platforming, they intentionally break physics because they have to, right?
Yeah.
You can't commit to a jump and not be allowed to arrest your momentum in midair, because otherwise that would be less fun. And like I said, it's okay to give up some reality for more fun. But I couldn't help but notice that when you are in a dead sprint and you jump, or you are standing perfectly still and you jump the same amount. Like,
interesting.
Like forward, you jump higher, but you jump forward like a virtually identical amount. So the few times that you have to jump over a chasm of some kind, it's like, well, you better know exactly where that hitbox is, because if you go forward another pixel, you fall to your death. But if you stay right here on the ledge, you can make the jump.
And one of the things that the game does not do, and is not needed in strictly 2-dimensional platformers, but in even false 3-dimensional platformers, I think is absolutely needed. There's no jump shadow, Oh,
God.
So you just have no real idea where you're going to land. And so you just kind of hope against hope that it's in. And also so for a game based around not that mechanic, the punishment for failing that mechanic is much, 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 much higher, right? Because it's like you just got hit 5 times by a guy who can one hit take a health bar because you screwed up one thing once, and there is no save zone. Your butt is going all the way back to that giant turtle, and you just try again,
Yeah. So, courtesy of Susan, I was already able to give up how I feel about this game. How your nostalgia goggles holding up?
I believe that in order to play this game, you would need nostalgia goggles as thick as the professor's. And in interest of keeping this PG-13, I'm going to take the one that we can do. Fuck this game. Awful. It's just terrible. It was a grinding, bone-crushing experience from which there is no emotional return.
Yeah. No, that's it's about my feelings on it. Although, so I had to do one weird thing, because some of the other games we've played, like I successfully completed, haha. But I had to know what the ending to this game was like. Did you watch the ending to this game on YouTube?
No, I did not.
Okay, so when we're done, I'm not going to insert somebody's entire YouTube video into the audio of the show.
Nice.
But go grab a YouTube video of just the ending, right? Because the music is so bizarrely out of place. Like, it's incredibly chipper. And then it does like the Super Mario World, like arcade gamey style, like here are all the enemies you just fought, even though they're just literal palette swaps of each other.
Yeah.
But then the credits part is, I think the character you beat the game as throwing a ball that looks like it's like a jumbled white mass to one of the goblins. And the goblin does his attack animation like he's hitting a baseball. And then the words fly up. It's letters, right? The big white ball is letters. And it flies up and explodes into the words. Which, if it just did that for like a couple of words or the end or something, you'd be like, oh, that's cute. But it does it for like everyone who worked on the game. Which thankfully in 1989 was like 20 people and not 200 people or 2,000 people like it is nowadays. But after the third or fourth identical animation and sound effect, I was kind of like, okay, I see what you're doing. Can you stop? Like, can you just lie to me about the remaining people who worked on the game?
Yeah.
So even the closing credits are a bit of a slog.
Yeah. And that I don't know how to feel about that. Like, I don't know whether to be happy because I lacked the skill to go to have to deal with that, or bummed that, even after this, like if I were to have muscled through, and persevered, right, then my perseverance would have been met with like more of this. It's like, why? Like, no, I did it. It's got to stop now. So you stopped, right? You stopped watching it, right?
Oh no, I watched the whole ending.
Oh, did you? Okay, no, because I was going to say like with the degree to which the developers have gone out of their way to make this a horrifying grinding experience, and multiple times, like when you think the veil has been lifted and you have seen the end of the grind, there is apparently more. I'm afraid that like to watch the YouTube video would be to like watch the Ring movie, and then all of a sudden like my life would somehow become this like horrible grinding experience. Like, anyways.
No, I think I don't think there's anything left to say about Golden Axe.
Yeah. After you say like, no, it's basically like the Ring and it's awful, and yeah. So no, I do think that the one nice thing I will say about this game is that if you are ever looking to reframe another old video game, it's a good 0 point.
Ouch. Right, like somebody's going to be listening to this who has like really fond memories of it, like those guys that I played it with last week.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if we're gonna get gushy, like, here's what you were doing wrong comments. Like, here's why the game is fine and you are wrong. Like, I can foresee some of that.
Hey, I'm more than willing to admit that I'm wrong, but there are some places like in science where your opinion doesn't matter, where there are just laws and constants. Not saying this is one, but I'm saying it feels like it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll entertain people's fond memories of childhood and not approvingly at them, but I don't think there's anything somebody can tell me that's going to retcon happiness onto this experience.
No, unless they basically say like, no, dude, that's not the game you want to play. If you hold the A button, then it opens up a if you hold the A button, then it just plays Super Mario World. Like, then I'd be like,
that'd be fine. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
But that doesn't seem super likely.
Mm-mm.
Anyway,
So,
we'll play
next
something that
time?
sucks less next time.
Yeah. One hopes like Link to the Past. We could do Link to the Past. It's a Link to the Past.
So I've been thinking if we were going to play an RPG, because I mean Zelda's like an action RPG, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Should probably be Zelda 2, which is inarguably the greatest one in the series. I mean, there's a lot of really good games in the Zelda franchise. You look like you are waiting to punch me in the teeth.
I hate everything you love. Oh yeah, no, Zelda 2 Electric Boogaloo, man. Like everybody. That's the one. That's the money one. I don't know why everybody just glosses over it.
It's what do you call it? It's like a sleeper hit or an unsung classic.
It's cult classic, maybe.
Cult classic.
Yeah, but
cult.
the problem is that everybody who plays it's a suicide cult classic, is what it is. You know.
Yeah.
There
there was that one woman who invited you into her house for God knows what, because the camera doesn't go in there with you.
Yeah. Well, that is probably one that we should play at one point, because I vaguely remember that one, but like honestly, I don't remember much. It certainly was not in keeping with the Zelda franchise. I remember that.
Yes, that is a fair assessment. But I don't know. Maybe we'll get around to Link to the Past. Someday. I don't know if you can go from Golden Axe directly to Link to the Past without, like, it'd be like too much of a shock to your system. Like, you jump in ice water and then you jump into a hot tub. Like, it's not good for you.
Yeah. Actually, now it's interesting, because the analogy my brain came up with was it'd be like going from a vegan diet to heroin. So. So, different strokes, but yes, it would be quite a shock.
All right, we'll see. Everybody will just have to be surprised.
Excellent. Sounds good.
See you next time.
Next time, buddy.
The curtain falls, the music plays, the credits roll, then it all fades to black, and you're left by yourself. The fanfare is gone. There's no player 2 there by your side to share victories won. But as you slowly progress down the hall to your bed, a few great events leak back into your head from the time that you spent traversing the land, battling evil, fighting the darkness, just sword in hand. Your memories creep in with the edge of a smile.